Hi, good morning. Nice to have you all of you here. This is the end of the week, and it's a 25th episode. And this is Arun Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. And while the original channel has a program once a week dealing with policy, dealing with stories and conversations, this platform, this channel, focuses on news, not exactly news, but news behind the news. We look at two to three different headlines, and my friends and I, my co anchors and I, we start analyzing those three headlines and give you a perspective of what goes on beyond the headlines. In that sense, we carry off from where the newspapers have carried a story. We look a little further than that. And today, as we speak, we are in the midst of great turbulence. One is financial with the Trump tariffs. The markets are absolutely disgusted and there's a slump everywhere. On the other hand, you have the Middle East, which has shown that Israel is capable of Holocaust. It bombed a school, killed 18 children, and what is worse, it killed about 15 paramedics and medical support staff, some from the United Nations, and they were shot in the head. It was not accidental. And the world keeps quiet about both these upheavals. Surprisingly, one supports the other. They are both interdependent. In the midst of this chaos, we're looking at three headlines. And the first headline, the three headlines are the ones that you'll see on the screen just now. The first story is where we are talking about Indian Pharma and how that's Silver Ray. It's escaped Trump's tariff, at least for now. Then we have the second story where, contrary to expectations, gems and jewellery has been very badly hit by the tariffs. And the third is a story of how India's UPI is growing quite well, thank you, but not as well. So let's take the first story. Can I have my two co-anchors today are Katya, there's Katya, and there's Isha, hi Isha. And so the first story is going to be taken about Katya. Katya, can you have your story?
You have it there, sir. Medicines before bling. So India, as we know, is called the pharmacy of the world. Our exports are, you can see the number. It's a very, very large number. It's very important to us. And our exports, pharmaceutical exports to the US are also very high. According to Pharmexil, they are at $8.7 billion, especially this was in FY24. So if you actually tell me there is a little bit of logic to what happened in Trump's first term, let me just take you a little bit there. In the first term, and generic prices in Trump's first term also he have a lot of protectionist policies, if not tariffs. So generic price crashed. There was a lot of regulatory problems, scrutiny, and problems that Indian pharmaceutical companies had to go through. And because of that, the pharmaceutical companies of India, their margins were falling. Now a lot of Indian large pharmaceutical companies, exports contribute at least 10 to 50% of their business, anywhere between 10 to 50%. So it's a large chunk of their business. A lot of margins, US price margins had crashed. It had affected them. But this and that, in fact, over the next few years, the supplies in the US had started drying up. So the pharmaceutical industry also bounced back around 2022. Price improved, and because they realized that they needed medicine. So this decision to leave pharmaceuticals out of the tariff regime is a way to right the wrong, to make sure the last term's mistakes were not repeated, which is actually good news for India. But there's a little bit of a catch there. It is not really a problem because Indian pharmaceutical companies import all their APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients, from China, and that is how we manufacture it. So I don't know what is the end net effect to US is, but on paper it looks good and it's not bad news for India. Back to you, sir.
Much, Katya. Yes, as you rightly pointed out, all the most of the APIs, the active ingredients for the pharma industry come from China. In fact, that is one of our largest export items to China. And these APIs are used to export pharma. At what time the US will wake up to this reality and decide that even pharma needs to be tariffed unless they wean it away from China, which is difficult because no other country can supply what China can supply. So it's a tenterhooks right now, but for now it's escaped the wrath of Trump and it seems to be healthy. And there's one more thing that pharma industry can benefit from, and that is because USA has walked out of the WTO. And China said that it will fund the WTO, so it does not close down. It's quite possible China and India may allow the WTO access to cheap medicines, which are so important for the rest of the poor world. Anyway, that's an interesting thing that has happened, which is that the pharma sector, which is crucial to India, seems to have been spared for now. And that takes me to the second story, where another sector that seemed to have been spared has not really been spared. Gems and jewellery has been slashed, and it looks like the industry may decline by 50%, 60%. There are all kinds of figures going on. And it is not easy. Look at the numbers before you. The chart tells you. Cut and polished diamonds have a tariff of 27%, because while the fine print says no tariff, when you add the other invisible tariff, we include a minimum 10% across the board, it comes to 27%. Gold jewellery is 32 to 34%. Platinum jewellery has 32 to 34%. Silver jewellery, 32 to 40%. Silver again, 29 to 30%. Every item has been tariffed. The GJEPC, which is an acronym for Gems and Jewellery Export Promotion Council, has petitioned the government and said, please do something, save this industry, for two reasons. At the bottom of the chart, you'll see how big the industry is and what our exports are. Our exports in gems and jewelry is huge, but there's a second reason why. Making jewelry is still the old way, it's labor intensive. The diamond industry employs about over 8 lakh people. The jewelry industry employs 5 times, 10 times that number. Most of these artisans are backroom operators. So the jewelry shop is the front, and they carve out, they design the jewelry that customers want, often custom-made jewelry. And if this industry gets hit, India will have another large chunk of people getting unemployed. So it is serious. We do not know what the consequence will be. JJEPC has petitioned the government. Let's see whether the government listens to them. And now we go to the third story. And the third story is by Isha. It's about UPI.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining me today. The story I'm bringing you is from the Mint, and it's titled UPI Transactions Soar in Financial Year 25 but fall short of government target. So in the financial year 2025, the Unified Payment Interface, commonly known as UPI, broke all records, processing 186 billion transactions worth 261 trillion Indian rupees. In other words, this would mean about 350,000 UPI transactions are being processed every minute in financial year 2025. As of February 25, India has at least 68 live operational UPI applications per data by National Payments Corporation of India. PhonePe leads both in terms of value and amount, followed by Google Pay, Paytm, Cred, and Amazon Pay. The number of UPI transactions have been steadily increasing, with a 1.9% rise in value and 2.6% rise in volume witnessed only between February and March 2025. As you can see in the charts, these numbers have been rapidly increasing, and this increase is representative of a rapid adoption and trust of digital financial solutions, and it also showcases deeper financial inclusion in our country. However, while impressive, the volume of transactions still falls short of government's targets, who aim to achieve a target of 200 billion transactions by the end of the financial year. They even provided a UPI subsidy of 1,500 crore rupees to compensate businesses for the cost of processing UPI transactions, which are currently deemed a public good and therefore free for us. This outlay, however, was lower than that assigned in the financial year 2024, which was 3,631 crores. 80% of this subsidy amount will be disbursed unconditionally to banks to cover their costs. Another 10%, if the bank maintains technical decline due to the failure of transactions, and the remaining 10% is reserved to be released if the availability of the system processing the transaction is above 99.5%. UPI is a very interesting space to be looking at. It's really been transforming the way we think about money and our relationship with money in this country, even at the lowest level. So this increase is a good sign, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, sir. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Isha. UPI is a success story in India, and although India says that we are the ones who created UPI, that's not exactly true because Brazil has its own UPI. Brazil has its own mobile telephone payment system, and they are also quite robust. In India, there are two problems. One is that even 15 years after this government came to power, we still do not have an e-commerce regulator. You have transactions at the speed of light, but resolution of those disputes can take ages. You have scams. Constantly you hear about them in papers. People tell you, be careful of this, be careful of that. Okay, we'll be careful. But what about the perpetrators of scam? Why haven't they been booked? Why are they behind bars? And the second problem that is there is that there is something called, in banking, we call it MDR, merchant discount rate. Normally, for every transaction, a certain amount of money is given to the merchant for carrying out the transaction. To the government is a party that gives the money to bail them out. The money is not enough. So merchants are not interested in pushing this business until they can get some more money. Normally, MDR takes care of everything. But here the government has not brought MDR because it wants to promote UPI as a public good and free for the customer. But there's some rethinking on this matter because the government does not have any more money. So expect there to be a merchant discount rate even in UPI very soon. Anyway, that brings me to the end of today's session. And as usual, we do have some people writing in and sending the questions. And that's a reminder to everyone. Keep on sending a question. We pick up 3 of them and we try to reply to them. And the first question is interesting. Why do you think the US has not put a tariff rate on the pharma sector? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first reason is simple, that the Indian government begged and pleaded with the US, and the US decided to charge other sectors and decided to spare the pharma sector. Why did India choose pharma and not other sectors? I do not know, but that is one reason that everyone talks about. But there could be a second reason. One of the issues that the common man in USA is constantly perturbed about the high cost of Medicare. And why you cannot reduce the price of the pharmaceuticals consultation fees, you cannot reduce the cost of insurance and risk premium. The one area where you can reduce costs is the cost of medicines, especially generic medicines, which is where India is a very big player. And that is why possibly America said, let's not hurt the common consumer on every front, give him something so that he can be happy that medicine prices are not going up. Okay, that takes together the first question. Let me take a second question. The second question is, does India have any option besides the US? Yes, it has an option. In the case of gems and jewellery, yes, it has an option. It does not sell to USA. It sells to people, to countries next to USA, and the US citizens want jewellery very badly. They'll travel and pick up jewellery. It's many Indians go to Dubai, pick up the jewellery, or to Singapore and pick up the jewellery to escape the duty structure in India. Even in the US, India will have to learn not to depend too much on the US, but to increase the sales in other parts of the world. And this is where the government has been lacking in promoting better ties with the ASEAN countries, which are growing richer, faster than most countries in the West. And while the West anyway does not have surplus income, and jewelry is bought through surplus income, India will have to look at other countries where incomes are growing and wealth generation is high. So India has an option in jewelry. A lot depends on the trade and a lot depends on the government. We have a third question, and that is, how do UPIs fare against credit cards? Well, interesting question. Credit cards have a larger value, fewer transactions. You want to buy a big ticket item? You don't use UPI, you use a credit card. There's another reason why credit cards are popular. In credit cards, there's something called dispute resolution. And you can repudiate a transaction if you think that someone's cheated you. Or you think the payment has been made wrongly. You can cancel a payment. In UPI, it's difficult to cancel a payment. So many people find credit cards safe. Thirdly, because credit cards have an MDR, a merchant discount rate, the merchants are themselves involved in the game and they want to keep this line of activity as healthy as possible. So large ticket card transactions take place through credit card. Small ticket card transactions, paying the vendor, paying the vegetable vendor, paying for lunch, paying for a snack here and there, is often through the UPI. Two different markets serve two different kinds of people and serve two different kinds of transaction. For buying from the vendor, I may use my UPI. For buying something from Amazon, I'll use a credit card. So that's it. Anyway, thank you very much. We end the week today. Have a lovely weekend and come back again on Monday. That will be the time we will talk about what has happened over the weekend and the latest news as well. And right now, given the times that we are in, everything is turbulent and everyone wants to know what is happening. So do tune in. It'll be great to see you again next week. Have a great weekend. Good luck. Goodbye.